Hi, I'm Joni Patry, and welcome to my YouTube channel. Well, today I want to talk about a pretty depressing subject. I don't know why I do this, but it's just interesting to see how astrology works. But this one I wanted to talk about was Laken Riley, who was murdered, violently murdered and raped, so horrible, by an immigrant here in the United States in Georgia. Probably you've heard about it. But I wanted to look at her chart to see if anything made sense around this. And I'm not going to go too deep because I realize a lot of you don't have astrological knowledge. But for those that you do have a lot of astrology knowledge, realize I'm doing this so the public can understand. Now, if you really want to go deep with me, you know what? Become my student. Go to sign up for my university, and I'll say that. My university right away is universityofvedicastrology.com. Takes about a year to complete, and by the time you finish, I go into very deep analysis of a chart. But you don't even have to go that deep to see as much as I'm seeing in this chart. So on a surface level, I want everyone to see what you can see from this chart astrologically, just not even knowing any astrology practically. Okay, so with that, before I continue on, I want to tell everybody to sign up for my free newsletter. Go to galacticcenter.org and you will get all my predictions delivered weekly to your email address. While you're there, check out my Patreon page where you're going to get all sorts of perks and classes and join a spiritual community. And last but not least, you've got to sign up for my Galactic Planner. Try it out. You're going to love it. It calculates your own personal chart and puts all the transits whenever they hit in your chart. It's going to come up on your calendar in your phone or your computer, and therefore you can be astrologically prepared personally for everything. All right. That's all. You can find all of that on galacticcenter.org. So now let's put up the chart for Laken Riley. And we do not have a birth time. So what we do in this case is we make the moon the ascendant. And for the most part, the moon is in Scorpio that day. Yes. And what I find very interesting, now I just put noon for her time, just because I wanted to see where the moon was midday to see if it was in that sign the whole day, and it is in Scorpio. So I have for noon, it was somewhere around 23 degrees of Scorpio. And what this tells me, I mean, even if she was born somewhere around noon, the moon is right on top of Pluto. Regardless, it's going to be conjunct Pluto this whole day. So Pluto deals with rape. And this is the book I wrote on Pluto. So if you want to deal with some of the deep, darker things that Pluto deals with, it's not too pretty, but it is something that is astrological, Pluto dealing with that. Now, Pluto also deals with death. And usually Pluto is a lot like the 8th house. And what you're going to find is that with it dealing with the 8th house, it deals with death. It deals with unnatural death, such as murder and things like that. So looking at Laken Riley's chart, what I wanted you to know, besides Pluto being with the moon, the Neptune is what really caused the whole thing to happen. Remember Neptune, you can't see Neptune. You can't see where it's coming from. It's foggy. It's deceptional. It's, she went out for a run and this guy attacks her. Came out of nowhere. So what you're going to find looking at her chart, Neptune sits right next to her Mercury, which can mean can't see things, deception, things coming about. But the most important aspect that I see about that is that transiting Mars, which is the planet of violence, transiting Mars sat on that day at 13 degrees of Capricorn. Plug that in. You see what we're doing is, in order to look at the transits where planets are currently in the sky, and as we plug them in, they're constantly moving. That's why they're called transits. So they're moving through all the signs. But Mars moves slower than the Sun, the Moon, and Mercury. It takes about 2 years to go through the whole zodiac. So Mars will cause effects every 2 years. But you need something of a slower moving planet to be a life-changing event, such as a death or, marriage or major moves. You need those slower moving planets. So Mars essentially transits through the whole zodiac every 2 years, but every 2 years it will make a conjunction over her natal Neptune. And it was exact that day. It was at 13 degrees of Capricorn. That is the degree of her natal Neptune on that day that she was murdered. Okay, now, remember I keep saying Neptune is the one that deals with unexpected events, secrets, lies, deceit, death. Well, if we look to see now where transiting Neptune was. Remember, we were looking at Mars on natal Neptune. Neptune, in other words, in her birth chart. That's where Neptune was when she was born. But if we look at transiting Neptune and plug it in, the transit of Neptune's within a 3-degree range of her natal Mars. So here we have the transit of Neptune. Now this one is life-changing. Why? Because Neptune takes about 164 some odd years to go through all 12 signs of the zodiac. So it's once in a lifetime that it's going to cross over Mars. And it did at this time. And sometimes, since it moves so slow, some people will never get Neptune crossing over a particular planet in a lifetime because it moves so slow. It stays in a sign for 12 years. So my point is, this day was extraordinarily violent and bad for her because Mars is the planet of violence, of war, of anger, hostility, and death through accidents, violence. Mars rules weapons too, rules like knives and guns and bombs, and violence. So transiting Mars was on her Neptune, but transiting Neptune was on her Mars. And that Mars sits in Pisces where Neptune was transiting. And I don't know what houses they're in because I don't have her birth time. But from the moon, it was in her 5th house. The 5th house deals with the mind, your mental agility, your intelligence. It also deals with creative powers. But Neptune, being what it is, and Mars being the ruler of Scorpio, which rules the sign her moon is in, was really important. But transiting Neptune on her Mars, while at the same time, in order to predict something in astrology, you can't base everything on the faster moving planets, such as Mars or Sun or any of the faster ones, because they happen repeatedly in a lifetime. And Mars will cross over her Neptune. Maybe she had a bad day every 2 years, but she doesn't get murdered. So my point is, you've got to have a slower moving transit along with the triggering effects of the faster moving planet, because transiting Neptune will be on her natal Mars for about 1.5 to 2 years, on and off. It just kind of retrogrades back and forth. So within that frame of when it's within a 3-degree range of a planet, And we have a faster one happen. That's the day it happened. So transiting Mars was exactly on her natal Neptune on that day. So that was the day she needed to be extremely careful. Now in Vedic astrology, we have something called the dashas. And they depict the big picture of what's going on in your life. Now, because we don't have her birth time, I don't know exactly what dasha she's in, but I do know that she was in Venus's Mahadasha because it lasts for 20 years. And she was in Venus's Mahadasha from November of 2023. Well, Venus-Mars, the subcycle of Mars. She was in that from, if she was born at noon, but somewhere around 2023 to 2025, she was in Venus-Mars. So I suspect that her subset cycle of her dasha was Mars, and Mars was triggered by Neptune. So I just wanted to really be simple and clear about how you can see things in a person's chart and dangerous things so that possibly you can avert things. And, you know, I don't expect all of you guys to be able to calculate all these things right off the bat, but I do expect that you can learn some basics of astrology. And hey, if you got my galactic planner, it'll tell you these things. You don't have to have a program to calculate it. Seriously, it will. But you got to have a slow-moving, long-range aspect for a life-changing event to occur. But then you have the trigger of a faster-moving aspect that triggers the event. That is simplistically how you can make predictions with astrology. And most of all, I still feel like knowing all of this, we can avert and change things and prevent things through the wisdom and knowledge of astrology. So with that, I think I'll close. I hope this didn't depress you too much, because it really does make me nauseous to deal with charts like this, but I do it for the respect that hopefully I can help people avoid and avert certain dangers through the understanding of astrology and using their own chart. So with that, I'll close. Thank you for joining me today. And remember, if you would like more information on me, go to my website, galacticcenter.org. And if you would like to study with me, go to my university website, universityofvedicastrology.com. Thank you.